Have you ever fired a HE shell at the enemy and they just exploded, but you didn't hit their ammo or their fuel, they just exploded? That's overpressure, and it's one of the most underrated mechanics in War Thunder. However, today I'm breaking it down so that you can use it like a pro. And a big shout out to GoldenPancake for the idea. And if you're new here, subscribe for more guides like this one. Now, let's crack open the pressure chamber and see what's inside. What is overpressure? To put it simply, it's the result of a shell with enough explosive force that detonates above an armored plate penetrating into the crew compartment, and the resulting shockwave and fragmented metal kills the entire crew instantly. No fire, no ammo rack, just pressure. This can happen with any shell that detonates on impact, so all of these. What's the key, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. The key is to not miss. See, if you miss while aiming at the top of an unsuspecting tank, the shell will detonate harmlessly against the tank's thick metal armor. The target will then turn his gun towards the newly spotted assailant, and he in fact will not miss. This often leads to feelings of rage and anger towards both tanks involved. On a more serious note, attempting to shoot the top of a tank is a really good way to miss your shot. But how do you ensure that you don't miss? Well, there's a couple ways. Look for any protruding or raised objects on the tank like hatches, scopes, machine gun turrets, or even random tech. These will provide a stop for your shell, making it much harder but not impossible to miss. But what if the turret is perfectly smooth? I'm glad you asked. You don't have to hit the turret to overpressure the tank. You simply need to hit a top plate of the tank. Any top plate. But here's something to keep in mind while you're shooting. Most of the shell's energy is focused to the sides of the shell, not the tip, which is why hitting a top hatch is so effective, as it focuses the blast down, not forwards. So to overpressure a tank, aim the side of the shell, not the tip, at the intended armor plate, and you should be just fine. Now, knowing is half the battle, but what about the actual battle? How do you use this information practically? Well, here are a couple examples of overpressure in action. So, watch closely, and see if you can spot any patterns. As I stated before, anything flat on top is overpressure material, and the same applies to any flat plate on a tank, including the sides and the bottom. But if you hit those, that's not overpressure, that's just side pressure and bottom pressure.
What?
Again, the key is hitting the intended target with the side of the shell, not the tip. However, overpressure is not a one-size-fits-all. You do have to know where you can and can't pin the tank. But I'll cover that in a minute. Here's where it gets fun. Any tank can be overpressured, even the Moss. It literally does not matter how much armor they have. You could overpressure the Rat if you wanted to. So when you see a behemoth of a tank, do not fear, for even he is not safe from overpressure, so long as you know what you're doing. Sometimes it's not about penetrating the tank, it's about creating a big enough shockwave to just, well, mush the crew's insides. For example, a light tank may be overpressured without full pin, or without even hitting the tank. Hitting a Moss beside the gun with a 155mm will do just fine. And hitting the side of a T-55 with a HE, that shockwave goes in and pressure does the rest. The moral of the story, if you can hit the crew, you can literally kill anything. I sort of skimmed over the shells used for overpressure, and I'm running out of things to say about overpressure, so here you go. Look for these type of shells in your lineup, they are the best at overpressure. HE, HE-AP, HE-SH, ATGMs, and literally anything that detonates. The bigger the boom, the bigger the shockwave, and the higher the pressure, the more likely you are to kill the tank. Although, not all guns can overpressure, so don't expect to overpressure anything with a 50mm or even a 75mm. It's just not gonna happen. And if you saw this clip from my last video on grinding from reserve to top tier, so you shoot the top of the tank and the tank go boom, then you might be thinking why I didn't include AP rounds. I mean, that looks like overpressure. Well, it's not. When an HE shell hits the top of a tank, it blasts fragmented metal as well as a shockwave into the tank, instantly killing the crew. On the other hand, the AP round is penetrating the armor, and then, depending on the type of round, exploding inside the tank. Totally different from HE rounds. But how do I get good at overpressure, you ask? Well, here's how. Practice. Go into a test drive or custom battles with a tank that uses big HE rounds, and practice shooting at the top of enemies without overshooting. And if you want, use the X-ray mode to learn crew layouts. Sometimes a tank will have an odd crew layout that makes it harder to overpressure in one shot. Practice aiming for turret rings, 90-degree fronts, and hatches. These will give you the best shot at killing the tank. And try different types of shells to see the blast radius and penetration it has. And if you treat it like a skill, you'll start seeing results faster. And you won't be that guy who bounces 5 shots on a Waffentrager.
Stop staring at the radio, load the cannon.
Instead, you'll be that one annoying player who kills the entire enemy team, and I'll probably have to come revenge bomb you like a true gamer. Also, I said you could overpressure the rat. You could overpressure the rat if you wanted to, so now I have to prove it. But War Thunder doesn't have the rat, so I did the next best thing. So now you know how overpressure works. It's a savage, secret weapon, and it doesn't care about armor, it doesn't care about angling, it just works, if you know how to use it. Again, a big thanks to GoldenPancake for the idea, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my Spookston breakdown video. And if you want to see me grind from starter tanks to top tier, click this video right here. Let's get better together, so that you too can become a low tier legend.